Last night, while everything around your special person appeared completely normal, their phone lit up. Once. Then again. And then, for a third time. 3 messages. From the same woman. But here is what makes this different: your special person didn't react to those messages the way she expected. The first message made them stare at the screen. The second made their expression change. And the third? The third message forced them to make a decision they had been avoiding for far too long. Because this woman wasn't simply trying to start a conversation. She was trying to interfere with something. Something involving you. And what she wrote in those 3 messages exposed more than she ever intended. Stay with me, because the meaning behind the third text changes the entire story. For some time, there has been an energy surrounding your connection that hasn't made complete sense. One moment, your special person seems emotionally close. The next, distant. One moment, you feel as though everything is finally moving forward. Then suddenly, silence. You've probably wondered what was happening behind the scenes. Was someone influencing them? Was there another person? Was something being hidden from you? The answer is more complicated than you imagined. Because this woman knew about you. She knew your special person had feelings they weren't openly discussing. She knew there was an emotional connection that hadn't disappeared, regardless of distance, silence, misunderstandings, or circumstances. And that knowledge bothered her. More than she wanted anyone to realize. That is why the first message last night was carefully written. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. It sounded almost innocent. She wanted your special person to believe she was simply checking on them. But beneath those ordinary words was a question. A question about you. She wanted confirmation. She wanted to know whether you were still occupying their thoughts. Your special person immediately understood what she was doing. They didn't answer. And that silence became the reason for message number 2. This time, her tone changed. The second message wasn't casual anymore. She brought up something from the past. Something your special person once told her during a vulnerable moment. She attempted to remind them of disappointment, confusion, or distance connected with you. Why? Because she believed reopening an old wound could change their current feelings. But she made one enormous mistake. She assumed your special person still saw you through the eyes of the past. They don't. Something has changed. During the recent silence, your special person has been thinking much more deeply than anyone realizes. They've replayed conversations. They've remembered moments they pretended didn't matter. They've wondered what would have happened if fear hadn't controlled certain decisions. And most importantly, they've started recognizing something uncomfortable. Some of the advice they received about you wasn't neutral. People had opinions. People projected their own experiences. And one particular woman had far more influence than she should have. Now your special person is beginning to see it. That second message exposed her. Because she knew details she shouldn't have been using against you. Your special person looked at the screen and suddenly thought. Why does she care this much? Why is she still bringing this person up? Why does my connection with them bother her? And that question changed everything. Because jealousy often hides behind concern. Control sometimes disguises itself as advice. And someone who constantly tells you who you should stay away from may have reasons that have nothing to do with protecting you. Your special person began connecting the dots. But the woman didn't know that. She assumed the silence meant her message was working. So she sent the third text. And this was the message she should never have sent. Because she finally revealed what she actually wanted. She told your special person, in one way or another, that they needed to stop thinking about you and move forward. But then she added something unexpected. She admitted that she knew your special person still cared about you. Read that again. The very person who had been trying to minimize your importance accidentally confirmed that she had noticed your importance all along. She had seen it. In the way your special person's mood changed when your name appeared. In the way they became quiet when certain memories surfaced. In the way they compared other connections to yours without admitting it. In the way they never completely closed the emotional door. She noticed everything. And she became afraid of what might happen if your special person finally followed their own heart instead of everyone else's opinions. That third message exposed her fear. But something even more surprising happened afterward. Your special person didn't argue. They didn't explain. They didn't defend themselves. They simply stopped engaging. And sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is the moment someone realizes a conversation no longer deserves access to them. Last night became one of those moments. Your special person began questioning how much outside interference had affected this connection. They remembered moments when they wanted to contact you but someone convinced them not to. They remembered occasions when they interpreted your actions negatively because another person planted doubt. They remembered how often they listened to everybody except themselves. And suddenly, regret appeared. Not dramatic regret. Quiet regret. The kind that sits beside you late at night and whispers. What if I misunderstood everything? What if I allowed other people to decide something that belonged to my heart? What if the person I kept trying to forget was actually the person I should have spoken to honestly? That thought stayed with them. And the woman sensed she was losing influence. That's why 3 messages mattered. 1 message could have been casual. 2 could have been coincidence. But 3 messages in one night showed urgency. She needed a reaction. She needed reassurance that your special person was still listening to her. Instead, she received silence. And silence frightened her more than an argument would have. Because an argument means emotional engagement. Silence can mean someone has already made a decision internally. Now pay attention to this next part. Your special person didn't immediately reach out to you afterward. And there is a reason. They are thinking about how to approach you differently. They know that showing up with the same behavior would create the same outcome. They know words alone won't repair confusion. They know that if they reopen this connection, they may have to acknowledge things they previously avoided. That includes their own mistakes. Their hesitation. Their inconsistency. And possibly the influence they allowed other people to have. That is difficult. But it is also necessary. Because the biggest revelation from last night wasn't what the woman said. It was what your special person finally understood. They realized that every person surrounding them doesn't necessarily understand their heart. Someone can love you and still give you terrible advice. Someone can call themselves protective while secretly acting from jealousy. Someone can sound confident and still be completely wrong about what you need. Your special person has spent too much time allowing outside voices to become louder than their inner truth. Last night challenged that pattern. And the third message pushed them over the edge. They looked at the words on the screen and recognized manipulation where they once saw concern. That realization cannot easily be undone. Once you see someone's intention clearly, you can't return to ignorance. And now this woman knows something has shifted. She noticed there was no immediate response. She checked her phone. Waited. Checked again. Nothing. Perhaps she wondered whether she had gone too far. She had. Because she accidentally forced your special person to defend you internally. Not with words. With memory. They started remembering the good. The genuine moments. The times you understood something nobody else noticed. The moments when being around you felt different. They remembered details they thought they had forgotten. A phrase. A look. A conversation. A feeling. And suddenly the version of you that other people described couldn't compete with the version of you they personally experienced. That distinction matters. Because your special person is beginning to separate other people's stories about you from their own truth about you. And those two things are very different. There is another detail you need to hear. This woman may not necessarily be a romantic rival. Her involvement could come from friendship, family connection, history, possessiveness, or simply a desire to remain influential. But whatever her role, the emotional pattern is similar. She didn't want your special person making a decision she couldn't influence. That is what last night's messages revealed. The first message tested the door. The second pushed against it. The third exposed why she wanted it closed. But instead of closing the door between you and your special person, she may have accidentally closed the door on her own influence. Imagine that. The person trying hardest to keep two people apart becomes the reason one of them finally questions everything. That's the twist she never anticipated. And there is more. Your special person has recently been hiding how strongly certain feelings have returned. On the outside, they may appear composed, busy, distracted, unbothered. But internally, something has been building. They have been wondering about you at unexpected times. During ordinary moments. Late at night. While hearing certain music. While seeing places or objects associated with memories. And each time they tried to dismiss it, the feeling returned. That is why the woman's messages hit such a sensitive place. She wasn't talking about someone your special person had forgotten. She was talking about someone they were actively trying not to think about. You. And there's a huge difference. You don't need 3 messages to convince someone to forget something that has already disappeared. You only fight against what still has power. She knew your connection still had power. That's what frightened her. But now the question becomes, what happens next? Your special person has two choices. They can continue allowing fear, pride, and outside opinions to control their actions. Or they can finally investigate their own feelings honestly. Last night pushed them toward honesty. Not complete action yet, but honesty. And honesty is where real change begins. Because for the first time in a long time, they may be admitting privately, I still care. I still wonder. I still have questions. I still haven't completely moved on. And perhaps most importantly, I need to decide this for myself. Those words represent a turning point. But don't misunderstand what this means for you. Your role isn't to chase them. Your role isn't to prove your worth. Your role isn't to compete with this woman. You don't need to. Because if a connection requires you to fight constantly for basic respect, it isn't being handled correctly. Your special person must decide what they want through their own actions. And that's exactly why what happened last night matters. The pressure is no longer on you. It's on them. They now have information they cannot unsee. They know someone attempted to influence them. They know unresolved feelings remain. And they know continuing in silence will eventually become a choice of its own. There was another moment after those messages that nobody saw. Your special person opened something connected to you. Perhaps an old conversation. A photograph. Your profile. A memory. Something. They didn't necessarily contact you. But they looked. And when they looked, emotion returned. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. But because genuine emotional connections leave fingerprints. You can delete messages. You can stop speaking. You can unfollow someone. You can tell everybody you're finished. But the heart has its own archive. And last night, that archive opened. Your special person remembered not only what happened between you, but how they felt around you. That's what changed the mood of the entire night. The woman thought she was reminding them why they should stay away. Instead, she reminded them why forgetting you had been so difficult. And there is one more revelation. The third message contained something that made your special person suspicious. The woman seemed to know more than she should. Perhaps she referenced information your special person hadn't recently shared. Perhaps she knew you had been mentioned. Perhaps she had been watching the situation more closely than anyone realized. Whatever the exact detail, your special person noticed. And once suspicion enters a relationship, previous conversations begin looking different. Advice that once sounded caring starts sounding calculated. Questions that once appeared innocent begin looking investigative. Warnings begin looking like interference. Your special person started mentally revisiting earlier conversations with this woman. That's when the pattern became obvious. She had repeatedly brought you up. Sometimes indirectly. Sometimes jokingly. Sometimes critically. Sometimes pretending she didn't care. But she cared. Why? Because your presence represented something she couldn't control. Your special person's independent emotional choice. And last night she pushed too hard. Now the balance has changed. The next chapter won't be decided by her messages. It will be decided by what your special person does after reading them. Because feelings without action eventually become memories. And your special person knows that. They know there may come a point when you stop waiting. When you stop wondering. When your life moves forward without needing answers from them. That possibility has become increasingly real. And strangely, the woman's messages reminded them of it. She tried telling them to move forward. Instead, your special person imagined you moving forward. Without them. That image hurt. More than they expected. They imagined you laughing with someone else. Building new memories. Giving someone else the attention they once took for granted. Finding peace without needing closure from them. And suddenly, their silence didn't feel safe anymore. It felt expensive. Because silence can cost people opportunities they assumed would always remain available. Your special person understands that now. They cannot assume you'll remain emotionally frozen while they decide what they want. You have a life too. You have choices too. And that realization has created urgency. Not the artificial urgency of 3 texts. Real urgency. The urgency that appears when someone understands that another person's heart is not guaranteed. Now remember this carefully. Whatever happens next, judge it by actions. Not mysterious signals. Not assumptions. Not promises whispered once and forgotten tomorrow. Actions. If your special person wants to rebuild something, consistency will reveal it. If they want honesty, they will communicate honestly. If they recognize outside interference, they will establish boundaries. If they value you, you won't need to beg them to demonstrate it. Because last night's revelation wasn't meant to place you into another waiting room. It was meant to reveal where the real decision belongs. With them. And somewhere inside them, that decision has already started forming. The woman sent 3 messages hoping to influence the ending. But she may have triggered a beginning. She wanted your special person to stop thinking about you. Instead, they thought about you for hours. She wanted them to remember the difficulties. Instead, they remembered the connection. She wanted confirmation that her influence still mattered. Instead, she discovered silence. And that silence said more than any argument could. Because your special person is tired of allowing everybody else to narrate their heart. They are beginning to understand that some choices must be made without an audience. Without friends voting. Without family deciding. Without outsiders whispering. Without fear writing the ending. Just truth. And the truth they are struggling to admit is simple. You still matter to them. Perhaps differently than before. Perhaps more deeply than they expected. Perhaps with complications that still need resolution. But you matter. And last night, another person's jealousy, fear, concern, or interference forced them to confront that reality. The 3 messages were supposed to close a chapter. Instead, they reopened the book. And now your special person is standing at the page they avoided for too long. The page where they have to decide whether to keep reading or finally speak. Because this time, they know silence may not preserve the connection. It may end it. And if they truly don't want to lose you, the next move cannot be another hidden feeling. It has to become something real.